I'm going to start with some issues certainly on trade. I'm sure that would be of interest to our viewers. I'm going to start, though, with Saudi Arabia because that, Michael, is the news of the day. And the president coming out there and saying it's America first for me in terms of possibly punishing the Saudis for the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. He says, I'm not going to destroy the world economy by acting foolish with Saudi Arabia. As you might suspect, he's already being criticized by a number of prominent Democrats for those comments. But what's your take on how the president's handled this situation?
Well, I wouldn't phrase things the way President Trump does, but I understand why he winds up in the policy space that he arrives at, which is basically to say we're not going to break the relationship with Saudi Arabia or even fundamentally change it over this issue. The U.S.-Saudi relationship has had a lot of challenges over the years, not least 15 out of the 19 hijackers coming from there. That wasn't Saudi policy to hijack the jets on 9/11, but it certainly was a result of a lot of Saudi policies that we don't like. So we've been through even worse. That's not to say that the Saudis should get, or that Mohammed bin Salman should get a blank check here. And I would have preferred to hear some more reflective warnings from President Trump towards the Saudis. They're going to have to improve their human rights record. And also, we're not going to trust their judgment on the war in Yemen and a few other things as much. But we're also going to recognize we have a policy and a strategy of mutual dependency. I think that kind of language I would have preferred to this sort of denial or half denial approach that President Trump takes. But again, I don't disagree with his nuanced bottom line, which is that we can't really rupture the relationship over this one tragedy, however horrible it has been.
It is interesting because some of the Democratic criticism, James, I was referring to, the likes of Senator Mark Warner, says if this was a Bush administration or a Clinton administration or even an Obama administration, there would be a far different reaction, and the Saudis wouldn't essentially get away with it the way that he sees President Trump letting them get away with it. But maybe Michael's onto something, that the bottom line is different than the way you arrive at that bottom line. My question is, what do the Saudis do next? You know, oil's way down today again, and you wonder, do they still cut production, even with the president coming out and basically saying, hey, we've not let you away with this, but hey, we let you go here, but we like to see these oil prices as low as they are. It's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah, I would think that his message of support might encourage them to keep drilling. I also think they maybe are under some pressure now to show that there's something to this modernization drive other than a PR campaign. We've seen some signs that the Crown Prince there wants to pull that country into the 21st century. But between this event, reporters on our news side reporting torture of women in Saudi prisons detained for political reasons. We had the roundup of the Crown Prince's opponents within the country recently. So big question mark on whether the proclaimed modernization is happening.
You know, Michael, staying on this really quick with Saudi, the issue, of course, is, and I thought it was interesting, he said he was asked if he would meet with NBS if he was at the G20, and he said that he would. So it sounds to me like the president is very open to continuing this relationship, which, frankly, let's be honest here, means that we've got to stay on the side of the Saudis because our main target is still Iran.
I think that's right in terms of how President Trump sees it. I would prefer that, again, there be a little different, more nuanced messaging and a little firmer messaging. So President Trump could have said that he would meet with MBS, but he would have said, you know, I've got some concerns I need to express to him if we do meet, starting with the war in Yemen, where we've all learned, partly from the Khashoggi tragedy, that the Saudi state is making some mistakes these days, and some mistakes of judgment and of morality. And that leads us to conclude that this Yemen war in particular needs to be rethought. And we've been facilitating what they've been doing. It hasn't worked. It's time to be a little firmer. And I will deliver that message to MBS if I see him. That would have been a little bit,
well, and we'll see what MBS's
same
future
bottom
is.
line, but a little firmer, tougher message.
We'll see what MBS's future is. Really quick, before I let you go, James, I do want to ask you about, he was very harsh when talking about the Ninth Circuit. He actually took jabs at the Ninth Circuit earlier today when he was pardoning the turkeys. But again, this is a court that has been very anti-Trump, if you will. In particular, they've blocked, whether it's trying to end DACA, they've blocked things at the border, the wall, you name it. But why did he got very passionate about that, James? Do you think he's looking ahead to 2020, wondering if immigration is going to be the thing that he's going to run on when he comes back in 2 years?
Well, I would say also beyond the politics, and I think you make a fair point, he's not the first person to scratch his head wondering about a Ninth Circuit decision. This has been really the source of a lot of bizarre left-leaning decisions over a number of years. And we saw with the earlier travel case, the Supreme Court ended up siding with the president. I think it's likely over time that he will prevail if his goal is to see that U.S. immigration law is enforced.
All right. We said there was a lot to unpack. I think we maybe got to about a quarter of it. That's the way that's the way it always is. It seems with President Trump. Michael O'Hanlon, good to see you. And James Freeman, thanks as always.